Hello everybody, and welcome to the K8s Infra Working Group meeting of the 21st of July 2021. This meeting is being recorded to YouTube and we adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct, so please be excellent to each other. So let's start off by looking at our agenda. Lim, do you want to share for us? Because I can't share. And
Give me a sec.
Let's open the billing report, if you can do that for us, Lim. See what the billing report does.
Okay, my laptop is not responsive at this moment. Can somebody else do it?
Let me see if sharing is allowed. No, disabled by the host.
Hang on, let me make you host, co-host. Yeah, okay.
Good, let me share. I will share only that one and share. All right. Looking at the billing report, 175, which is a bit up from the previous spending. A bit slow to load. I don't know if anybody have any specific thoughts about the. I think it's to be expected this time of the release to have a marked increase in the traffic.
Ryan, I have a question. I don't know if you have this data yet, but after we did that reduction of the image size, can we see any difference on that, or not, that you can see like as an overview?
Not that I'm aware of that I could see on our side, because on top of the billing report, we do data analysis on the general traffic and the data flow of the logs, and we have not seen any reduction in the logs. So no, nothing there. I think the main thing that we're looking at to reduce cost is the mirroring, which Hippie is busy working on the design document for that, and he's said he will be reaching out to DIMS properly this week to run it past you. So no.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so if there's no comments about the billing report, I'm going to skip past this. Then let's. Hey, Arno joined us. Hello, Arno. And let me now share. I'll share the agenda, and we've just gone through the billing report, Arno, so done with that. So if you want to jump in with the first point on the agenda.
Morning, evening for everyone. Sorry for being late. So my first item is basically an open question to one of the aspects of this working group. So for people new, the main mission of one of the main mission of this group is to migrate all the pro job we have, periodic, pre-submit and post-submit, to the new community on Infra. But my question is, do we need to define a deadline for that migration? Like basically give a period of 1 year until we prevent people to scale pro jobs to Google Broadcaster. So it's mostly an open question.
I think we have to start down this path and we learn as we go along. But I don't know if we can set the deadline right now, because there are so many things that we'll end up learning during the process, I think. So
yeah, that's my main concern.
Right. So what we could do is say that release blocking jobs for master should be moved in 123, right? So that gives us 3 months, and it's only one set of jobs, and everybody will be looking at the same set of jobs because it's release blocking, and it's only for master, right? So add some qualifiers like that, and then set a deadline. And then when we get to that point, we realize that, oh, we've set up almost everything that is needed, and it's easier to flip the rest of the things over a period of time, right? I think that might be like a good way to approach the problem.
I see. I think I talked about this with Aaron, and he even went beyond your proposal because it was interest to basically shard the release blocking and the merge blocking in different node pool, or maybe a dedicated pro instance. So I was saying we may need to discuss this to one of the meetings, but he told me he can attend. So this is like, I want to start the conversation about this, because I feel like we have 2,000 jobs to migrate, and there's a lot of things we discover over time. I mean, it's more than 2,000 jobs.
So one question here, Arno, when you were talking to Aaron, was, we already have a way for the existing pro to actually launch clusters in other places, right? Like we have the cluster which only image building jobs run and kind of thing, right? So
we have Bosco for Amazon. When it's come to Amazon, we use Bosco to trigger a job on Amazon, but we don't.
Yeah. So are we talking about, like, is there a way to use the existing Pro cluster to launch jobs somewhere else? Or are we talking about like just moving to different clouds? So there is many possible options here, right? Like if you start from the beginning, we have an existing Pro, can it start jobs in other clusters that are owned by CNCF, right? That's number
basically, I mean, there are two possibilities. The first thing is we don't move outside of GCP. We still use GCP resource because we have most of the credit are dedicated to the GCP account. So the idea is to bootstrap a new Pro instance, connect that instance to the existing build cluster. It was never done before, so it will be a first if we do that. So we have to be cautious about this. Or we basically add to the current build cluster, GKE cluster, different node pool dedicated only for the release blocking and merge blocking. So that's basically the two options we have right now.
The second option seems to be the less risky, because it's all you're worried about is like, where are you burning up the money, right? Like, we're worried about like exactly where the Pro runs, because that's not, just running Pro is not what burns us money, right? Like it's the jobs actually that they run burns us money.
That's the case right now.
Yeah. What do others think?
What other things? I think it's just basically improve some tooling around the existing pro job defined. So we basically add a new test preventing people to basically run the pro job in other build cluster. So it's another conversation. We need to look at the option and basically see what can be done before code freeze in 133.
Yeah, I'm okay with any of these options because in the end, the heavy lifting, whoever does the heavy lifting needs to take the decisions, right? So whatever you want to do or no, and like whoever else takes that up.
Okay, I will follow up on Slack and with Aaron. So that's me again. So
I'm definitely keen for conversations around Boscos and AWS and then other providers as they come on to give us resources that are available for our projects. We can follow up offline.
Right. So Hippie, then the question there would be, what is a good way to stitch the existing pro to running the jobs on the other cloud providers, right? Like we have one pattern today, which is the Boscos pattern. Is there anything else that is possible? That would be the question there.
One of the things that I've thought about but haven't put any effort into is Amazon's ability to have like a Kubernetes cluster backended with stuff that runs on the fly. Eddie, you familiar with that one? It's almost like it's topless.
No, I'm not aware.
There's that.
It's the.
Sorry, someone go ahead.
Is it the ACS one, Amazon Container Service or something?
Are you talking about the EKS?
Yeah, there's a container service or something. I was saying, how can we connect that together so we can have jobs that run on that provider and not, the node won't be running unless we're using it. And I don't know if that's more cost effective for that provider, but finding those other mechanisms that, but I still think Boscos as a whole idea is a great mechanism to try to adapt for various providers where it makes sense.
So the problem is not technical because for pro just need the kubectl to connect to a Kubernetes cluster. So if you bootstrap a Kubernetes cluster on Amazon and you provide the kubectl to pro, it can schedule pro jobs. That's not the real issue. Basically the idea is basically to focus the usage of GCP because most of the tooling in test infra is very focused on GK. So we need to look at basically all the possible issue with integration between Pro and a EKS cluster. So I don't want to spread most of the time on this part because I know with GK we have a lot of integration between Pro and the build cluster. So the main idea is to, if you decide to basically to split or to shard the blocking job for a release between the let me rephrase this. So actually all the pro jobs for Kubernetes run on a unique build cluster. So the idea for a release is to separate the pro job, like the release blocking and the merge blocking, and move that to a dedicated cluster or a dedicated pool of nodes. That's the idea. Because right now we have an issue with build cluster. We have a lot of disk pressure on those build clusters. So the idea is to ensure we can always ensure we have basically performance during a release phase. We separate the pro job and we move them to either a dedicated cluster or a dedicated set of nodes. So it's simple to move that to still keep that inside GCP instead of move that to Amazon. For us, for me, is the simple path.
Absolutely. I don't think I'm suggesting that we move hard to move things over. I'm thinking that we look for easy paths for the new things coming forward
Exactly.
so that we can distribute it easily. I would never want to make more work for anybody than we already have.
Yeah. Anyway, we need hippie hacker. Sorry, we need other people for this, right? So that's a nice one, Eddie. The Pro on Amazon AWS.com.
Yeah, the EKS distro team runs their own cloud infrastructure, and all the building and testing is done on that. So
How easy has it been? Have you heard problems, trouble from them, or is it been?
no, I haven't heard anything bad. I think Micah Hausler and Jay Pipes are the ones that run the infra. I think Mike is also on the security committee for Kubernetes. But yeah, I haven't heard anything about trouble with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any question about this from someone else?
Thanks a lot. I think then if there's no questions, we can roll over to the next topic, also yours.
Okay, so the next item is focus on migrate the current tool set used to analyze the image pool on Gates artifact project. So I don't want to exclude anyone in that conversation, but this is a subject between, this is a request to hippie hacker folks. Like, we plan to migrate everything related to the audit you are doing for the image pooling to a dedicated project. And if you can, I think if you can open the link. If
Yes, I can. Just a moment.
yeah, basically in the Aaron made a comment about how he planned to move all of this, but I also have a question. We still need to have the list of the BigQuery data set we need to migrate. And we plan to do that in the next, I think, 3 weeks. So the main idea is to migrate everything you work onto a separate project instead of keep everything in GitHub sandbox, and it should be transparent for you.
Okay. Hippie says his audio went because he would like to comment on that. So you basically want us just to help you with a list of the data sets that must be migrated.
Yeah, also anything that's related to the work you are doing right now, because I didn't take the time to basically explore the sandbox project and try to understand what you are doing currently. So you can basically, after list of the basically the Python script, the BigQuery data set, the other GCS bucket that need to be migrated, we will take care of that, and we hope to not break anything.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll just verify, because there is some trial information in there that we ran some queries on that we could properly remove before you move it. So let us clean that up and let you know.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll take that as a AI for II to clean up the sandbox, and then let you know when we're done.
So I will do maybe in 2 weeks another ping if I don't see anything in the issue.
So Sorry, I missed that, Arnold. Just say again. You broke up.
I will ping you in 2 weeks if I don't
Good.
see any updates in the issue.
Good. I'll put an AI for myself to sort that out and give you feedback. All right. Thank you for that. Arnold, do you want to move on the 2 topics from Aaron, or would we roll that
I don't
over
have
to the next?
any input from the first one, but the second one is I can do a TLDR for the second one because the first one is a little tricky for me. So EP, I can repeat what I say if you want.
Rian, do you think it would be useful? I wasn't here. Not full.
Arnold, if you think we just roll it over to the next meeting, it's okay by me.
It's fine. I don't think it's critical. I just yeah, we'll swing back around offline. I don't think we're gonna take up time in the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, and that takes us around to Ellie's point.
So I know, Hippie, you spun up a conversation with some folks about the AWS accounts that are owned by the CNCF.
Yes.
Just wanted to check in on that. This is the original issue where it turned out everyone feels like no one has access to this, and it still sounds like they need quotas increased. And that's like an easy thing to do if we open support tickets from inside the account. So I don't know where that stands with getting any of us access to those accounts.
I just got access, and I haven't tried it yet, maybe 2 days ago, through, I think there's some admin. I'll go research more. I haven't had time to look at it, but I do have full CNCF access to the entirety of the AWS donation. And I will put this on the agenda today. Maybe, I think we're going to meet after this. Maybe we can walk through that. I know that longer term, I want to make sure that anything that happens through this account or Kubernetes specific stuff happens through some type of PR control within the K8s.io repo. And that's maybe you look at putting a PR in for that together later today.
Okay. It sounds like there are different accounts, but yeah, we can talk about that later.
Sure.
They think Cluster API has its own account.
It would be good to get an overview of where all these accounts are.
Yeah, and just back to what we said before, like if we want an official AWS representative on any of that, like feel free to pull me on.
Thank you. Good.
I think that one was originally from Justin, I think, if I remember right, maybe. Santa Barbara, Justin SB.
No, I mean, that was basically an issue raised by someone from Cluster Lifecycle.
Right, I mean, the AWS accounts that the Cluster Lifecycle is using.
Oh, okay.
Really came from, was handled by Justin.
Thank you for the clarity, Tim's.
So I have just one comment about this and a kind of an answer to Eddie. So my understanding is we can handle any issue in those accounts because those accounts are basically account dedicated to all the scientific projects. So we as K8s Infra working group can access to that. That's my understanding. So we keep the issue open to track any conversation and basically keep any update about the issue, but we as K8s Infra working group don't have access to those accounts because what EL told us, I think 2 weeks or last week, is those accounts are for all the CNCF projects. So it's gonna be tricky to basically give access to that just to Kubernetes folks.
I think I'm gonna try to help bridge that as a contractor at the CNCF so that we can steward the appropriate sub parts of the CNCF org level account for AWS and make sure that we have, add the same type of admin level access for those sub areas within the K8s Infra working group team. I do not know the details of how everything is sorted as of yet. My hope is that we can have a similar audit trail that we have for the audit scripts that several of us worked on to get us to the point to get reviewed every time there's a change, so that there's clarity in what is part of Kubernetes infra donated by AWS, and also a model for how we would do things in other CNCF projects where the credit is distributed by the CNCF.
Yeah, and if we need to get new accounts created and funded, like that's something that I can help with. I just don't want us to be in a position where everyone's pointing the finger of like, oh, this person has access, and like no one seems to know, which is what we've had for the past few months. So
I'm not part of the conversation between Amazon and CNCF, so I basically don't know how to help you or tell you what you need to do right now.
I know the background there is a program that's going to start in CNCF level for cloud credits from multiple cloud providers, and that will be for, it depends on the cloud provider what they want to do. It could be for specific project, or it could be for all projects. So they have some details that are being worked out. Hippie was working on it. So at some point, we will get to know how much Kubernetes itself will have allocated for budget or whatever constraints on CPU hours or whatever, right? For different, across different cloud providers. And then we'll have people who can have access to those. And Hippie is helping with that too. That's the background context.
Okay. Like any switches, is possible. Yeah. So I have like a quick question. Is it possible we have a basically dedicated new account just for the Kubernetes project, the Kubernetes org? Let's say the Kubernetes org, which means we migrate everything to a new account. Because I know Amazon enough to know, like, you get an account part of an organization and you assign a set of credits. So is it possible to do that and basically migrate anything related to the Kubernetes org and give admin access to SIG testing?
Yeah, we don't know those details yet because those need to be worked out. The first thing that needs to do is like on the business side, like what does CNCF provide to the cloud providers, and then so that's like first step. And then once we have some commitment in terms of money or whatever, then we'll have to Hippie and other people will help figure out for each of the cloud providers, how do we make it work, right? And then it will come to the individual projects. So it's a little bit way off at this point.
Okay, there are sub accounts you can have. I assume the CNCF as an organization, so you can have sub accounts and then distribute all the things that way. Hippie or Dims, do you know who is working on that from the AWS side with the CNCF?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was pointing to you from our side.
Previously, I believe there was a non-relational connection to a URL that's public for people asking for donations for public projects at Amazon. We don't know anyone on the other end of that connection. They just said, here's your 200K, right? And so then that's been stewarded by Ihor and Chris. And Ihor's been the person creating the accounts manually. So that's the transparency that we have now. And now, like, we need someone to steward those things. So I've just been granted access to that. I think Ihor basically changed the email on his account to match a group. And that's the group that I have access to now. So that's the only step that's been taken so far. Everything else is more relationships. And I want to emphasize, this is all about conversations and relationships and setting good, what can we expect from each other? And we don't know what to expect from each other yet.
I will I think for this specific subject, I will strongly suggest Eddie to directly reach out privately anyone related to CNCF.
Can you repeat that again? My audio is great today.
Yeah, sorry, I was telling to Eddie that it should be basically reach out privately to James or you or EL about the subject, because I feel like we want to be helpful, but we are not really useful about this. So I'm cross the finger we have a dedicated account for that.
Yeah, I just don't want us to be blocked. So if there are people that I can piss off internally to make things happen, like that I can do. So I just don't want us to be like pointing and waiting around to hear back from people. So just again, let me know what I can do to help.
Okay, thank you.
I think I can, within our current scope, without changing anything, go ahead and create the highest level of sub-account for accounting purposes that we have within the org level. Is there anything or not you're concerned about that we might miss from an org level account with creating a full admin sub-level account?
Who is that question directed at?
Arnaud and Aaron and anybody, this is everybody, but Arnaud's been the one asking the.
Can you repeat the question? I was lost for a few seconds.
I mean, my objective is I want the equivalent of what we have for GCP, where somehow we have a single account that we can use to see where all the money is going and what resources are being used. And I really don't mind however many sub accounts and whatnot hang off of that, if that's a better way to do things within Amazon. So I lack some domain expertise. And I've lacked bandwidth on this, but I'm happy to be involved in relational aspect and kind of figuring out how we structure this stuff. But I'm totally cool with Eddie's priority of like, we want to make sure people aren't blocked. Did that answer your question?
I think mine was a technical one to see if there's anything that we know of that sub account wouldn't be that we need, like the accounting thing. Can we allow something within that account to do full accounting for everything within that org, or are there things within, and this is all Amazon specific, I have no idea, are there things that are only org level that will need to have like another level of filtered access to say this is Kubernetes?
So for basically the Kubernetes needs, we don't really have to worry about what's set up at the org level. We basically just need an Amazon account with the role administrator access.
I think I feel like maybe Eddie, if it's not you, it's somebody on your side of the house who can work with maybe myself, but certainly Hippie, Ihor, and Chris A, to make sure that like we get an account at as high a level as is appropriate. And if we discover that that account is showing us more CNCF assets than we should be seeing, we'll work through that with y'all to scope us down to whatever we need. Is that okay? Because like I kind of don't know what I don't know about AWS billing. So I feel like I need an Amazon billing expert to work with us.
Yeah, I'm definitely nowhere near an expert when it comes to billing. I can get someone and I can get the questions answered that we have. So,
all right.
And then as for credits, like it sounds like the CNCF went through like the general credit program and not like Bob Wise or any of the EKS team.
Not yet.
Okay, we should probably loop in Bob.
Yeah, I would say looping in Bob would be great. That would be a great way to go. Because I feel like I don't know how much of the history you all already explained, but I felt like there were some sort of piecemeal things that just happened from different people at Amazon as requests came up. I don't know that we've ever like structured everything through a formal process. I think that's what we're trying to bootstrap here.
I heard someone say that large systems that work evolve from small systems that work. So there will be many evolutions of this. And I'm glad we've had these smaller steps along the way.
Good. So thanks, Eddie. You will get a lot of communication going forward. If there's nothing else on the Amazon account, we can roll over. I see there's a new topic from Ying.
Yes, so this one, I raised this before. Basically, we have a CSI proxy generator binary, and right now it is only in the staging bucket. And so I think based on the discussion, I understand that there's no automatic way to promote from staging to release. So someone need to manually do it. And this is kind of just, I copied it. Oh, I copied the wrong link, but I have another one for CSI proxy similar to this K8s. Let me copy the link again. And
that's
I
actually rude. No, sorry. I will stop interrupting. That's rude of me. Please go ahead.
Oh, no problem. So this link is for CSI proxy. I need to add the more information, but I want to check whether it is the correct way to do that. And the bucket should be use so-called KS artifacts prod. That means production / binaries / CSI proxy, for example.
Okay, so you were headed in the same direction I was headed. Does anybody know how this thing works? All right, that's what I thought. I have the sneaking suspicion that Justin went and got something vaguely up and running that may even look an awful lot like general binary artifact promotion, but I am not aware exactly of where that is running, or how it is running, or how it works. So I would be interested on going through this journey with you of trying to figure out if this is in fact a real thing that can be used by more people than K8s. Because it looks, just at a glance, it looks like what you're doing is correct. But I personally don't know right now. I would have to go figure out. So where do I go look to see if this is actually happening successfully? But if you CC me on that PR, my username is StiffXP. I will keep track of this with you. I know you raised something about being unable to write directly to the bucket a long time ago, and I apologize that it dropped off of my radar. I've been working to kind of overhaul permissions for if you do a / in front of the CC, that way it'll assign me as a reviewer. I've been trying to do redo permissions such that if we don't have artifact promotion, I want to figure out what we can do in the meantime. But I like your approach of trying to use what appears to be actively used by K8s and see if that works for us.
Sure. So I think from what I read, I forgot somewhere, basically this is mainly just for kind of record. It's not doing anything. Someone still need to manually run some command to actually promote to that release bucket. So maybe I should add Justin to this PR.
Yes, adding Justin would be good too. And I'll see if I can track him down. I've had other stuff that I've been trying to push out the door before I go bug him about this, but I've kind of wanted to bug Justin both about this and about the AWS account stuff, to be honest.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'll update this and ping Justin. Hopefully he responds with something.
Okay, that'll work. And if you are in a state such that this is really blocking something that you need for the 122 release, let's chat about it, because I'm sure I or another human would be willing to do the manual copy from one place to the other for now, if it's going to unblock you. But I don't want that to be our, I think that to be a special case sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, that'd be great if we can have this in 122. Yes, that's for the release.
Okay. All right. I'll take the rest of it offline, but thank you for raising this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Aaron. Anybody else want to add anything?
I had some agenda
yes,
items. I don't know if y'all skipped over them.
Yes, we skipped over them. So, sorry, Aaron. Yeah, if you want to take those quickly.
Okay, so right, in terms of infra updates, in the interest of time, I'm not going to walk through infra YAML too much. Can you allow me to share my screen? I think I've joined as somebody who doesn't have privileges to do that right now.
Let me try and do that.
If not you, maybe Arno can do it. I forget if co-hosts can add other co-hosts.
Yeah, Arno. Yeah.
All right, thank you, whoever did that. Will it let me share a specific window?
Let me stop sharing.
Wait, I can find it. I can find it here. This is gonna work. Okay, well, I can't see what I'm sharing, but I think it's the K8s.io repo. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm inside of the infra GCP directory, and inside of here is a file called infra.yaml. I'll blow up the schema of this a little bit. I want to, I have an interest in the idea of using YAML as our bridge out of Bash to stuff that's more manageable. That could be other scripting languages or other programming languages such as Python or Go, or it could also be Terraform or Terraform modules. I've looked around briefly and it seems like Terraform, there is an idiom of like unmarshalling YAML and using that as structured data to then go create a bunch of Terraform resources. So what I tried to do just for a quick first pass was a YAML file that describes roughly all of the projects that we have. And then kind of as a human, I added a field to describe what is the script or thing responsible for managing this project. So just roughly what the schema looks like. And this comment here is about how I'm noticing that we have a lot of different classes or clusters of projects that follow a similar pattern. And so I'm thinking that one day we could move those into folders so that rather than setting a whole bunch of individual bindings on each project, we could set IAM bindings and permission stuff on the folder level to greatly simplify the management and to reduce the complexity of what's going on. So you can see here, for example, I have a category called E2E, and then I have a bunch of keys for each of the Bosco's projects. There are a lot of them. I will scroll down further as GitHub struggles to keep up with rendering. Another example would be like the projects that are related to Prow and how there are Terraform files for each project. The idea is sort of was maybe like you could specify default things up at the folder level, and then you could specify more project specific things at the project level. What really needs to happen to take this forward is to kind of noodle a bit more on this schema and kind of figure out where we would want to take it. Because I'm hesitant that I'm aware that like maybe this is overly refactoring around what we organically have, and perhaps somebody would be more interested in kind of an already pre-established way of managing stuff like this that we should kind of try to get our stuff refactored to fit into. Where I'm trying to like, we've been at this for a couple of years, I've noticed some patterns, I think it's time to reduce a lot of the boilerplate and copy paste to more concisely describe repetitions of those patterns. So like one example would be right now, so here's an example of how this is used. There's a bash function right now that says, I want a project, and it's pulling the project name out of YAML. And it's going to error if the project name isn't in the YAML. So that way, you try to do stuff, it's not in the YAML file, things will break. So the idea is we could start to try and get people to that YAML file, or even like a folder, like a sharded hierarchy of YAML files. And people would just be changing the data, and then the scripts would go actuate based on that data. So what I was trying to scroll down to find is this bash function here, where like we are moving toward a world where we're using external secrets. There's an app called Kubernetes External Secrets. You create a CRD that describes which cloud-specific secret manager implementation you are storing your secret in, or it could also be something like Vault. And then this bash here is kind of like pre-provisioning Google Secret Manager secrets that can then be referenced by all those CRDs. And like this kind of looks structured-ish and tree-ish, and this could be an example of something that could be pulled into the YAML so that the bash doesn't have so much data embedded in it. It's just the code that actuates the data. So that's kind of my hand-wavy vision for one way we could start to use less bash, or at least have people look at less bash when they're trying to use our services. So that's my spiel on Infra YAML. If folks are interested, we can talk more about this in Slack, or there's an issue. I don't have an issue to describe that we should think about this. I will make one, but I will put it in the meeting notes afterwards. The other thing I wanted to talk about is thanks to Arnaud and a couple of things I've added, we have a lot more tests that run against all of your PRs now. So all of these verify scripts in the hack directory, anytime you open up a folder, it's kind of like Kubernetes, right? There's a verify job, but what that verify job actually does is run a bunch of individual scripts. So this is the same deal. It just doesn't have the fancy JUnit XML wrapping right now. And so we have things like all of our bash is now passed through shell check, and it will fail if your bash does not meet shell check standards, or like all of your YAML is passed through YAML lint. So we can start to do some kind of YAML formatting standards. YAML lint's not really great about indenting and stuff. Some of the places we could go are, we're verifying all of our Terraform, and right now all we're doing is like vanilla Terraform validate. But we could, if people are interested or familiar with this, do, I don't know, TerraGrunt or something that's more Terraform specific about like making sure the Terraform is valid. Another place where, another path worth exploring further would be using conf-test. I don't think this script is going to be super interesting other than to point out it points at the policies directory. So conf-test is something that uses open policy agent to describe policies and then run that against structured data. The site for conf-test here is conf-test.dev. And they have an example of how they're writing some stuff against Kubernetes in a language called Rego. And I forget, yeah. So as of today, conf test could be written, like you could write policies against all of these different kinds of configuration formats. So we could do validation. If we get more of the structure of our infrastructure into data, like in YAML or in JSON files, or in Terraform files, which is the HCL2 apparently. Like we could start writing policies that run against all that to describe more of our like overarching intents. The way we use that right now, we don't actually fail on any policy things, but we do have like a deprecations policy, which we're using to warn on any Kubernetes resources that have either already been deprecated or are about to be deprecated. So this, for example, is how we can keep track of all of the index resources, excuse me, that need to be migrated to V1. And then I guess the last bullet point I have there is that we finally moved to Terraform 1.0 and Terraform finally went 1.0. So hooray, NBA for that. It was amazing. And then let's see. So two other things I'll walk through real quick. Oh, look, we can probably even see the verified job yelling at me as a live demo. This is the last piece of this umbrella issue. We talked a number of meetings ago about the idea that we have a bunch of apps that all run on AAA, but they were all random top-level folders. And maybe we could go ahead and like standardize what the concept of an app is, or at the very least, move all those things that run in AAA into an apps folder. And Jim D'Agostino has helped out tremendously. Arnaud has also moved the prow work that he's been doing in this format, and I've taken a couple of the others. And I think when I land moving the K8s.io thing over, that'll be the last of it. And then I can just say, if you want to, like all of the apps that we currently run for the project are inside of the apps folder, which is super cool. Let's just go see which part of the verified job failed for me so I can demonstrate what this is like right now. Because we don't have JUnit, there's like not a lot that I can see unless I expand the log. So I will do that, and it says, ooh, it says conf test failed. So apparently something about conf test failed, and I also have YAML-lint warning about something, but YAML-lint passed because it was just a warning, not an error. So I will have to go figure out what I did that made conf tests mad. Okay. The companion piece to this is this, which is basically, it's going to add post-submit jobs for all of the apps inside of the app folder, so that anytime you open up a PR, this is probably going to be really ugly stuff to look at. Yeah, no, I think the PR description is better. But I don't have anything about the apps there. Anyway, when a PR touches apps GCS web, the deploy GCS web will fire once that PR merges. When a PR touches the K8s.io directory, that will automatically deploy as well. So we'll at least have gotten to, I don't know, straight up GitOps-based deployment for all of our apps at least, which feels like a huge step forward compared to where we have been for the last couple of years. So I'm pretty excited about that. Then the other thing that we are pushing to have this done by the time 122 goes out the door is V122 of Kubernetes is going to be the last release that has any CI artifacts published to this GCS bucket and this GCR repo. there has been a lot of work in flight that I need to kind of tag into this issue to sort of describe how we got to the point where it was basically just some follow-up search replace. Like I know that the kubeadm and cluster API folks did a fair amount of work to automatically pull from the correct GCR repo instead of what they had hard-coded. So we've been storing CI artifacts in community-hosted places since V117. It seems like V122 is a reasonable time to say this is the last release we're doing it for. I've got one of those wonderful checkbox-based lists, which I can now click a few more of these, where like there were a number of repos across the community that did have hard-coded references. As I was working on some of these, I tried to point everything to use dl.k8s.io instead of using the hard-coded bucket name if it was using like wget or curl or something to like retrieve the artifacts over HTTP. And the reason I did that is because dl.k8s.io is something that's completely under our control, and we can transparently flip the entire, like everything that hits dl.k8s.io, we could flip it all to the new bucket. We could decide we're only going to flip certain paths to the new bucket. So we could flip like just the older releases over, or we could flip just V122 over to community hosted release artifacts. I'm talking about the ways we can roll this out gradually because I feel like this might be the thing that blows our budget if I were to just slam it on entirely. And there will still be some hard-coded references that we'll have to do as we migrate release artifacts over to the community. But that's kind of the goal for V123 is like all of the Kubernetes release artifacts, they come from the community. They won't come out of google.com. And so like bundled up in that is the artifact promotion process and helping out Ying's specific issue. And making sure that everything that we use to like run tests and CI and stuff also comes from the community. We made a lot of great progress on that in V122, but there's still just a few things left in the code base that didn't quite make test trees. Anyway, I took us 3 minutes over time. I'm so sorry, but thank you for letting me ramble for a bit. Any questions?
Thanks, Aaron. Any questions before we close?
I would love to dig into this more at another time. Lovely, lovely work.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, I think that is our full meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Thanks a ton, Rian, for hosting. It's cool.
It's my pleasure.
Cheers, everybody.
Yeah.
I hope you all have a happy Wednesday.